And now at the Scottsdale Plaza Resort for Arizona Mainstream Project's second annual Patriot Banquet, making a return appearance here in Phoenix, is talk show host and commentator Tammy Bruce. Tammy, thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
My pleasure. It was so good the first time I had to come back. Any excuse to get into Arizona, I'll take it.
Well, we're glad to have you. And I did not get a chance to meet you personally last year, but I was in the audience. And I have to say, what is so impressive, or what impressed me, was the fact that you had come from formerly from a liberal or democratic sense, and at some point that changed for you. Can you take us through that a little bit, just briefly?
Sure. This is what is so great about this nation, is that generally people who identify as liberal through conservative should have a common bond of patriotism, of being grateful for being in the country, of wanting to live the lives that best suit us. For the longest period of time, though, on the left, there's this message that in order to be able to do that, you have to have enemies. That other people are after you, and it's other Americans. We're seeing that manifest today through the political scene, of course, is that there's class warfare, there's an attempt to divide. For me, my politics didn't change so much. It was the realization that they were best served within the conservative sphere. So while all of my political beliefs are based in the notion of government staying out of my life, of being able to live the life that best suits me, but also within the context, and this was also missing on the left, of personal responsibility. That we had a relationship with our community, that we have a relationship with the nation, and that we should take that seriously. That's void on the left. When you demonize other people, and you think that you're the only thing that matters, you begin to forget about the nature of what's happening with your neighbor. We see it happening with those Occupy Wall Street protests. You see them mistreating each other. Sexual assaults are on the rise. You see horrible behavior, and when there's no regard, I think that's one of the things that the conservative ideal, especially for minorities, serves quite well, is that money is freedom all around the world, and that if we're answerable to anyone with a paycheck, we're certainly not free, and the ability to achieve that financial freedom, but also the nature of respect for each other, and that really kicks in, especially when there are differences. So really, the conservative ideal, I think, is especially important for minorities.
One of the things that you said last year that stuck with, I think really hit home, and stuck with a lot of people that I spoke with after the banquet and through the course of this past year, was the left's technique of being aggressive, getting in your face, and getting us, our side conservatives, to back up and be quiet.
Yeah. It is their only real tactic. I'm surprised. I left the left, well over a decade ago, and yet I still see that same old tired tactic being applied, and it is working to some degree. Part of when you can't argue on the details of the issues, you need to have the other side move away. And part of the tactic is to be so disgusting and so offensive that people turn away. And I tell people all the time, Christians especially relate to this notion of it's time to stop turning the other cheek. One, I think Christians are out of cheeks at this point to turn, but it's time to stop turning. And when you face it, then it's funny how it's really a house of cards on the left. It'll collapse. They need decent people to turn away, and they're doing it purposefully. I think, again, with the political scene these days, that is still the nature of the tactic of being so repulsed that you don't want to become active or stay active. That is the worst thing in the world to do. It's like turning on the light in a room. The darkness relies on the light simply not arriving. The light doesn't have to fight with the dark to get rid of it. So the dark has a real inherent interest in no one flipping that switch. The moment you don't turn away, that switch is flipped, and the darkness just simply is vanquished. That's the trick, I think, and the left knows it, and I think that's going to be still, with Tea Party especially, and with Americans in general, the need to participate in the system with a respect for the system, for the founders, and for your neighbor. We are not seeing that on one spectrum. We're seeing it wobble also, frankly, on the right as well, when it comes to how the right wing was and is responding to Tea Party, and I think that's something that we're going to have to work on.
Now, one of the things that you do so well is comment. Well,
I'm Scots-Irish. I'm talking and I can't shut up, dude.
But commenting on the current political, we're in a Republican primary season. Had a lot of debates. I believe, without too much, I hope I won't be contradicted, but you were a big Palin supporter, Sarah Palin.
Yeah, sure.
So she's now announced that she's not in the race. We have 8 candidates left. Give us your sense of this field and where you see things going in the next few months.
All right, well, I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent, so I won't be voting on any of this framework. But I think that you're seeing even Republicans and their response that every time somebody else new announces, they're at the top of the post. And this is after generations of Republicans of that machine, and the Democrats did it too, of having next in lines, of thinking that the people really were. But Barack Obama's done us a big favor. He vocalized what both of the machines have thought about the American people for a long time. Really useless, bitter, and clingy, and it's kind of road bumps on their way to their cocktail party, right? Both sides think that. And there's almost an annoyance you see in people like Romney and Perry that they actually have to go through the primary season because they figure they know what the end result's supposed to be. They haven't had to convince people for an extended period of time. And, and even the ones like Herman Cain, who I think is a very nice man, he speaks in what I term, as does Michelle Bachmann, both also associated with the Tea Party sensibility, but both of them speak in what I term as talk radio-ese, is that there's a certain kind of delivery that I don't think works within presidential politics. And I think politicians and people perhaps of my generation in business and in politics aren't used to actually engaging the American people. The Tea Party has re-energized the notion that you better be speaking to us, that we do know what we want. And right now, look, I've seen the Republicans vote the next in line time after time. Obviously, the one that can win hasn't been winning lately, and that's why we've got President Barack Obama. And so I hope that within this sphere, that the the Republican machine itself will recognize that, maybe counsel some of their candidates to be a little bit more engaging with the American people. And at the same time, I think we might be in for something unique. That perhaps Tea Party, while presidential politics are exciting, that maybe it's about the stakeholders of this country taking back the Senate and the House. I think no matter who's the president, if you had an Allen West as Speaker of the House and Rand Paul as Senate leader, I think we'd be in okay shape.
Now, a recent article drew attention to single women as a force in this upcoming election. Now, when I say single, not just the younger single women, but also the elderly single women. Give us your assessment, since you come from a background of the women's movement, feminism. What role are women going to play in this upcoming election?
You know, where we saw it first was Tea Party. And it's women who have raised families, women who have been busy with their families, who have not had time to be political, thought everything was going to be okay, that the system was going to take care of itself. And you saw women coming out with Tea Party. You see women in leadership, the women running this event this evening. That's where we saw it. So there's an understanding that Tea Party, while people still try to malign it, the fact is, it is not a movement that's trying to accomplish something. It's a movement that represents something that's already occurred, and that those women, the stakeholders that went out there, young and old, and more women than one would think, have really come to the forefront, because we've realized that the system's not going to protect us, and that we've really got to act. And traditionally, it is the women who, as a feminist, I've always weighed it. I love the fact that I'm an independent and conservative, seeing that movement arrive, which is what the left always had this idea about, but it could never really offer any ideas that the average American woman, frankly, could embrace. And now it's happened, it's done, and we're going to be the movement here, and it's very exciting.
What would be the most dangerous thing that could happen between now and November 2012 in terms of, and where I'm coming from is, I think we need a high voter turnout in order to assure victory in November of 2012. I think maybe we underestimate the effort we're going to need to put forth to make that happen.
Well, that is the risk, because everyone's saying, oh, Obama's going to be beaten. Look, I mean, anybody can beat Obama. Anybody but Obama. No, His approval ratings are still 10 points higher than President Bush's was, which perplexes me. I was very angry at President Bush toward the end of his term, but really the idea that he's still hovering around 42% approval is remarkable. And I've written on a number of occasions that if the Republicans put up somebody who is just like Barack Obama, why would we throw out a cultural icon who's just like the guy who's not a cultural icon? You know, I mean, we're learning a lot about Mitt Romney when it comes to who his advisors are and what his stands are, if he stands in one place long enough for us to gauge that. I was shocked 2008 occurred, so I'm no longer going to, I think that was a sign that Americans are ready for something different. They were lied to. I think they know that now, but the truth of the matter is, nothing should be taken for granted. And the Republican machine has failed many times because they do take things for granted. They're in this rut, if you will. And I think the dangerous thing in a way has already happened. And even though Tea Party isn't doing as many demonstrations, certainly, because it is something that's already existing in our consciousness, is the fact that we've seen that, look, the numbers are, many numbers across the economic spectrum are where they were for the Depression. People have lost their homes still. Home foreclosures are still going up. The unemployment rate, as we know, is going up constantly or is being managed by fake, faux policies of Obama. The average person, and the media is not covering the average person's life throughout this trauma, knows what's happened. And the key is for the Republicans to offer the American people somebody who's going to really offer something different, as opposed to with Obama, we're going to get death by 100 cuts. And with the Republican machine man, we'll get death by 1,000 cuts. It's a matter of timing, I suppose. So that's why I've been really encouraging people. I think that turnout will be good, but organizing has to be aggressive. And frankly, recognizing that taking the House and the Senate is going to be key for conservatives in the country.
So what is next for Tammy Bruce? You're on the internet with your dinner, okay. But where your audience is growing on the internet, what's next for you?
Yeah, that was a real risk. I was with first nationally syndicated terrestrial talk show host to go new media exclusively. That's worked out well. I've just re-signed with Fox for another year, so you'll see me doing that. Always, I've got a book I'm working on. I've started up, gotten back into the weekly column saddle over at Newsmax.com. So that's happening every Tuesday about. So it's about, as we get into this election year, my group it's a subscriber-based dynamic for a great deal on my site, and they're called Tammy Army members. And that group is what's growing. And I think it's a matter of making sure that conservatives, which I don't think they've ever had before, are able to enjoy a fellowship through what's going to be a very difficult year. Conservatives have been awakened. They're excited by the prospect. Governor Palin got them excited about the potential of the kinds of candidates that could exist. And so with her withdrawal, it's about reminding people, look, as conservatives, it's not about a singular hero. We still refer to President Reagan. And while he's not here, he energizes us in the partnership with the founders and with everyone else in the country to bring her back on her feet.
So if folks want to tune into your show, where can they do that?
Well, it is Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, and they should go to TammyBruce.com, TammyBruce.com, and you'll get the links there. I'm carried exclusively on the internet by TalkStream Live. So at 10 a.m. Pacific time, you can go to TalkStream Live as well, but the links are also at my website.
Super. We want to thank you so much for taking time to be with us here in Phoenix, Scottsdale, Arizona, I should say. And for Western Free Press, I'm Brad Zinn reporting.